With the full release of Veritas so tantalizingly close now, I thought it'd be a good time to go over those fortune banners in Prodigal again, to see if there are any new theories that can be crafted now that we know a little more about the universe these stories are set in. But first, a little info on how the fortune telling actually works. Aura is the fortune teller in question, previously Oren's girlfriend when he was off on his adventures in the south, and currently in Crocodile's employment. Or maybe they're dating now? That'd be weird. What would be crazy is if she was working for him all along, like even when she was with Oren, like it was all a ploy, even from before the very beginning. Getting sidetracked. Anyway, so Aura, she has this ability to read the threads of fate, but these things aren't necessarily a certainty. I guess you could kinda compare it to short-sightedness. What's up, my fellow blindies? If you're not short-sighted, then I'm literally about to explain it, so don't worry. Basically, you can see things clearly that are close to you, but as they get farther and farther away, they get more and more out of focus. So the metaphor here is just applying that same thing to distance in time rather than space. Events that are happening fairly soon, or imminently, or even presently, she can see pretty clearly, but things that are some time away could be more difficult to nail down, since there are so many things that could influence it in between then and now. Now, it's not quite as cut and dry as that. It seems that some people are harder to read than others, which I guess in the metaphor could be like reading different font sizes at a distance, but the metaphor's not important now. You get it, right? You're not stupid. The threads of fate are in this chaotic free state, and as the present moment draws along them, it slowly pulls them together until they're weaved into the temporal tapestry that we call the past. By the way, that's why the fortunes are told on these huge banners, because, you know, the threads of fate and their tapestries, you get it? You get it. Now, does this mean that once again we cannot fully trust what we read, as these events have a chance of not coming to pass, or at least not being accurate to the fortunes? Technically, yes. However, looking at this whole thing from a real-world perspective for a minute, as a storytelling element, these banners are clearly made to tease things in future games, so to have them not come true, especially with what you have to do to unlock some of them in the first place, it would be kind of pointless. I mean, I'm sure there are ways that some of the fortunes being wrong could be integrated into the story that would make satisfying and feel sense, but I just personally believe that the intention is for us to speculate on their meaning and then when we look back, be able to go, ah, that's what that meant. So let's actually do some of that speculating now, shall we? Going from left to right, first we have the speedrun banner, which you unlock for beating the main story in under an hour. It will be 15 long years before your debt is called, but in less than a decade, the storm will come for the north. This one we have a pretty strong grasp on. Clearly this is referring to Oren's favour that he owes Crocodile, which is called in the form of him being part of the expedition into Veritas' castle. The storm, obviously a moniker for Revulon, coming for the north in less than a decade is a little less clear. We know that she's the one to have King Regnier assassinated, but the Ashford Kingdom is in the south somewhere, not the north. And although the Veritas demo makes it seem like the assassination is recent in this conversation Crocodile has with Oren, we don't know for sure when the assassination actually took place. And for that matter, we don't really know when this conversation is taking place either. As I said in the last video, this is most likely a memory or a dream of some sort, so it could have happened quite a while ago. The reason I bring this up is because it was my understanding that the whole reason Revulon took over Ashford was to have control over its army and use their might to take over the north, but the fortune says she'll come for it in less than a decade. These events could line up this way, but 5 years between Revulon's attack and Crocodile finally sending the expedition seems like a pretty long time. Of course, coming for the north is very vague phrasing. She probably wouldn't have gone for Phoenicia right away. I suppose it's possible Crocodile didn't bother to set his own plans in motion until the threat was imminent to him personally, but I would have thought that he'd want to deal with any potential problems as early as he could. Why wait for Revulon to grow even more powerful before moving against her? Unless her actions were actually favourable for him up to a certain point. I mean, we still don't really know anything about what Croc's grander plans are right now. Although, hopefully, we won't have to wait that much longer to find out. You like that little end bit? That was a nice little ending to sentence for that little section, right? Moving on to the second banner then. This one you unlock by beating the main story with at least one curse active. 2 children, one in flight to be protected, the other left in the open believed to be safe. The true treasure will be taken. Ever since Curse Crackers came out, it's been the prevailing theory that this fortune is talking about Emma and her younger brother, who we don't know the name of yet. Although, mini theory on that, I reckon that Hugh would probably want to name his son Richard after Sheriff Richard Van, his deceased mentor. But anyway, with Soda's recent theory on Ellie secretly being Oren's sister, I mean, if that turns out to be correct, then it certainly fits. Perhaps Ellie was born first, and due to whatever circumstances the Grails found themselves in at the time, they had to give her up for adoption. One in flight to be protected. And Oren, left in the open, believed to be safe. And the true treasure? Veritas. Because, I mean, if it is Emma and her brother, we don't know what the true treasure could be in that case. Maybe it's their parents, or just one of them, Hugh perhaps. We haven't really seen what he's been up to in a long time. I mean, he's probably still the Sheriff of Vance Point, and he's still got one of his kids to look after, but who knows? Maybe the true treasure is Amadeus, somehow? We know he's what Carolyn was in Ladamra to look for in the first place. I'm really not so sure about this one. I think the only other siblings that we know of in Prodigal are Tess and Nora, but that'd be a bit of a bolt from the blue, wouldn't it? Their story seems pretty well concluded. I guess it's not strictly talking about siblings though. It makes sense to read it that way, but it just says 2 children. They don't necessarily have to be related. But, you know, then that kind of opens it up to basically every single character in the game. Personally, I'm still leaving my money on it being Emma and her brother. So, next is the third banner, which you unlock by beating the main story with the original 4 curses, which are these bottom ones down here. It is by your hand the shadow will gather once again. In hopes of rescue, you will bring defeat. Another one directly related to Veritas, it seems. It was pretty obvious even back when we only had Prodigal to go off that this was saying that Auron is going to reunite all the pieces of Veritas, because, you know, he's the shadow god. But it's that second part that I'm still not so sure about, although we do have a little bit more info than we used to. Now we know that Enether has put her faith into Auron and Veritas in the hopes that they might conquer a greater foe, which is possibly Nixian, but Enether personally seems to be more worried about Rayam. In a previous video, I said that the line "in hopes of rescue you will bring defeat" could have several different interpretations given the wording, such as maybe Auron hoping to be rescued from the clutches of Veritas, leading to the defeat of his former allies and friends by his own hands, puppeted by Veritas. But now I think we have a more likely meaning. Auron and/or Veritas, in the hopes of providing rescue, will instead inadvertently bring defeat for their own cause, be that accidentally giving power to Nixian somehow, or calling Rayam's attention to the revival of Veritas. And this has big implications for how the story of the Veritas game will go. Like, I think it may imply that the expedition is doomed to fail. I mean, there are definitely multiple objectives going into the castle, not all of them shared of course, but I think the end of the game will be a bad one. For the characters, I mean. Obviously I trust that it'll be a good story. But that's just it, right? The end of this game isn't the end of the story. So I think that the end of Veritas will involve some big changes in the balance of power in Lyrian, and it's not necessarily going to be good, instead setting up all the pieces in the world ready for the next chapter. Next up, the 4th banner, unlocked by beating Demon's Dive with any 4 curses active, which I totally did and didn't have to have Soda send me his data file so that I could get this footage. Of other worlds many have come and gone, one among them is here in hiding, a strength that would turn the balance. Okay, there was a little bit of debate when it came to the meaning of this one. Some say it means that many worlds have come and gone, and that there's a hidden world somewhere that could help in the fight against someone. Again, I would assume either Nixian or Rayam. However, I think that the phrasing is very important here, and have come to a different conclusion. Of other worlds, many have come and gone. This is how you would talk about a person, not worlds themselves. You would say they're of another world, or they're not of this world. So I think this first sentence means that many people or beings from other worlds have come and gone. Leading to the next sentence, one among them is here in hiding. Here, as in this world. Someone from another world is hiding in Lyrian. A strength that would turn the balance. Despite the positive connotations of that last phrase, it might not necessarily mean turning the balance for the better. It could still be talking about Rayam here. However, what Aura says preceding the fortune itself leads me to believe otherwise. Incredible. Is there really a chance? There may be a way. Listen close to this fortune. This person, this strength hiding in Lyrian that could turn the balance, I think they'd be on our side. Which brings us to the big question, who the hell is she talking about? As far as I can think, this is completely new information. The only thing I can think of, and it doesn't even make any sense, but the only thing I can think of would be the Seer? Remember the Seer? The incorporeal beings that apparently a big fight is happening with 20 years from the end of Prodigal? Could it be them? Honestly, I find it kind of unlikely. I would say it's more likely that this is some until now unmentioned party that we may get to know more about in a future game. I mean, I guess it could be talking about Colorgrave, but she's not in Lyrian. But there is a portal to the Colourless Void in Vance Point, so maybe that could count? I don't know, it would make more sense than the Seer, but I just have this feeling that it's going to be something else, an unforeseen wildcard that, well, not unforeseen because it's being foreseen here, but you get what I mean, shut up. It's something hidden not only from the characters in the story, but also from us narratively, which makes me think we may not get to know who or what it is in Veritas. The reason being is if this person or whatever they are is introduced right at the pivotal moment that they're needed, that runs the risk of feeling cheap and unearned. Instead, I think we'll get more of a lead into such a moment. I still think they're going to come out of nowhere and upset things right away, but I think that will be its own story beat first, rather than coinciding with the pivotal moment in another part of the story. That way maybe we get to see some of the effects of this power on the world before it turns the balance, as is foretold. And finally, the 5th banner. This one is unlocked by achieving all of the feats that you can find listed in the main menu here, and this is what it has to say. For light has already touched this world, and so it will return again. Alone, his efforts are hopeless. Right then, my take on this is that Rayam is the light being referred to here, and I think touched is being used as a synonym for influenced. So like, she already took on the Revante as her chosen people and spread her religion across the world, and now she's preparing for a second strike of some sort. So this lends itself to the idea that we're going to have to face off against Rayam at some point. Maybe as Auron, maybe as another character further in the future, who knows, maybe Minor. Maybe Minor will fight Rayam, I don't know. And the second part, alone his efforts are hopeless, I reckon is talking about Veritas. Before, he could shroud the entire world and keep it out of Rayam's line of sight, but now that she's here, it's too late for that tactic. So he's going to have to join forces with his former enemies, such as Enether, and maybe even some others. Perhaps this will finally snap Armadale out of her eternally depressive state. Or we could even meet some new gods. There was a very neat clip on the Colorgrave Twitter recently that showed this painting inside of Veritas' castle. And what do we have here? That looks like the primordial text to me. And when translated, it reveals that this rather lovely picture was painted by Firel. Interesting. I wonder if we'll get to meet them, or at least learn more about them throughout the castle. That'd be cool. These last two fortunes were actually kind of hopeful, weren't they? Bit of a mixed bag, of course, but that just makes it more intriguing. I really hope that we get something similar to this in Veritas. I hope that they keep up this trend of unlockable fortunes in every game. It gives us a lot to talk about and speculate on. Anyway, that'll do it for this one. If you have any other ideas about what these fortunes could mean, please leave a comment about it, or join the Colorgrave Discord, where the theories sometimes go even more in depth. Or completely off the rails, it's a coin toss really. Until next time.